What's the approach from BlackRock towards this debate and the election just weeks away?
So the approach with respect to the debate, I think, is to just recognize that, at some level, to your 3% point earlier, the polling in this race has been very stable in spite of extremely big fundamental news in the United States. And so I don't think we're expecting a ton of market volatility on the back of the debate. That said, fundamentally, whether we look out to the presidential election, look to things like, maybe some last gasp stimulus negotiations, U.S.-China, the fundamental reasons for there to be market volatilities we've seen in recent weeks continue to persist.
Then, Mike Pyle, how do you frame for Q1 and indeed Q2 of 2021? You look out past this derby, then what?
So we think that looking out past this both matters a lot, but also it's important to stay with an eye on the long term. So, one of the things that we're really highlighting to investors is, depending on the election result, let's just take two examples, the Biden unified government scenario versus divided government with the President Biden, that could be the difference on the fiscal stimulus side of upwards of 4 to 5 percentage points of GDP over each of the next several years. That could have pretty profound implications for the economy, for the reflation that the economy could experience, and from an asset allocation perspective, we think could matter a lot.
So, Mike, how do you position ahead of this election, given the degree of uncertainty depending on the outcome?
So we think at the top level, on the directional risk call, we would sort of point investors to the long term. And over the long term, elections haven't tended to matter a ton at the index level. But looking beneath the hood, we see real opportunities for a change of leadership in the equity market, depending on what we see in November. So, for example, going back to that point I made around reflation, in, say, a Democratic sweep scenario, the likelihood we could see a rotation away from some of the mega caps that have been leading this market towards a more bottom-up rally led by, say, small and mid cap, that looks to us to be a much more pronounced likelihood in that type of electoral scenario versus some of the others.